Let's get started. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming to our policy meeting. I want y'all to know, for those who don't know me, I am not a stuffy person. I try to let these meetings, us just have our conversation and our talk because it is policy. And if anybody's a nut for policy, I'm your nut. Hey, Jennifer. Oh, hey, Miss Tara. Let's have discussion and dialogue and we're going to turn it over to, am I going to turn it over to you, Miss Seward, or?
Sure.
Okay, so I'll turn this meeting over now to Miss Seward and we're going to move forward from there. Thank you.
All right, welcome everybody to our May 4th. And I would be disappointing all of my Star Wars geeks if I did not say, May the 4th be with you.
I forgot. I'm so upset right now.
I am one of those people who love sci-fi and I love Star Wars, so I had to say it. Sorry. So on this May the 4th, our policy meeting, we will be discussing, we will be revisiting actually, policy 620, responsible contracting practices, and we will be led in discussion with Mr. Robert Kaufman, our business administrator. Following that, we will be having a lively discussion that will be facilitated by our committee chair, Ms. Hopkins, about the uniform policy for elementary schools and elementary school recess. All right. As always, I like to ground our meetings in the purpose, and it is always to align to the current needs of the district, understand the intent and purpose of the policy, and to make sure that our efforts are geared toward our strategic plan, Focus Forward 2025. So without further ado, Mr. Kaufman, I will turn it over to you.
Before we do, can you go to, I think, slide 6? Let's talk about our,
there you go.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So ladies and gentlemen, just to let you know, I do again like to start on time and I also like to end on time. And just in case if those, our newbies who are just joining us this evening, I need you to be very brief and concise with your statements. We're only offering a 3-minute limit for comments. Let's have good intentions. And then please, we are teammates here. Most of us feel like we're family. So let's, show each other respect. Let's not interrupt each other when we're speaking. And let's be really realistic about the things that you are suggesting to your school board and to your district, to other parents that are listening in, and to even our students. Some of our students are here as well. Respect everyone's viewpoints, and let us all, not just the board, but all of us seek to understand where we each are coming from when it comes to these policies. And then let's try to use I phrases if you can, and not assume that you're speaking on behalf of anybody else. You can only talk for yourself. And then my last thing is anyone starting a conversation, let's have it one at a time, and let's not have sidebar conversations. I am going to mute those who do not adhere to our rules of engagement. So Mr. Kaufman, you want to take it over?
I'm sorry, there was a couple more for virtual meetings.
Oh, yes, ma'am. I forgot about that. And if you would please, as you speak, would you put yourself on video, and for those who are talking, allow them to talk, and then if you're not talking or speaking or commenting, please put yourself on mute, and then again, if we need to, we'll mute you during our meeting, and we're not going to, well, I don't know. I'm not going to multitask because I am not a good multitasker, but I'm going to say if you do need to multitask, because I know some of us got children, and like me, I got a puppy that will not let me get away with anything. So I'm going to let number 2 go, but go ahead, Mr. Kaufman, it's yours.
All right. Oh, there he is. Okay. Mr. Kaufman.
Good evening. So this is our second review of proposed policy 620, responsible contracting practices. The key highlights that we suggest revising from our last meeting based on questions and an additional review are that this policy would apply to all public work contracts that exceed $2 million for electrical, plumbing, and mechanical contracts. And the second thing is that the requirements of the contractor are to have a Class A apprenticeship training program. Okay, so we can click into the policy, please.
And I'm gonna make it a little bigger so it's easier for everybody to see.
Sure. So one of the items noted for potential revision is it says that this policy will supersede law, which could be problematic because that could affect funding. So my recommendation was that we revisit and maybe reword it to make sure that our policy supersedes our own contracts, just in case we forget to include proper language. Easy modification, but just so that we don't mess up any state or federal funding we may be receiving towards any projects.
Okay.
The next thing, the question was for a dollar amount. We consulted with our current architect and also spoke amongst ourselves and thought $2 million was a good threshold. That way, smaller contracts would be more available for local contractors that we use that may not be able to afford to have a Class A apprenticeship, but anything of material construction over $2 million would indeed follow that policy and then would require a Class A apprenticeship training program. So that would just be the difference in the way we word our RFPs that go out.
Okay. Are there any questions about this section? Go ahead, Ms. Hoff.
Thank you, Ms. Seward. This goes solicitor review after us, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
it would. My understanding is that Mr. Khan has already reviewed it preliminarily, but any revisions he would be also reviewing.
Awesome, thank you.
Any other questions or comments about this section?
So I have a question
Mhm.
regarding the $2 million. If we have a job that's close to it, $1.8 million or something like that, are we also going to apply something like that because it could potentially exceed 2 million?
So what we could do is put the qualifier of the 2 million in the RFP. Like specifically state if the proposals are over $2 million, you must have a Class A training program and language such as that, which would loop in this policy.
So even if they're like right there on the threshold of whatever it is, potentially it could go over because of unforeseen issues or whatnot. I just want us to have a contingency for that. That's all.
So are you asking if actual costs?
Sure. So I think what Jan is trying to adjust is potential for change orders that would eventually exceed the $2 million. And I think the reason why we picked the $2 million threshold is because most of our smaller jobs are less than 1.4 million or so. So we kind of wanted to give ourselves a bunch of wiggle room in that aspect. However, that is a discussion that we could have maybe when we go to solicitor review, if we could somehow loop in change orders into the equation up front. And maybe there would be some kind of penalty or something. I just don't know how it would work, and I don't know what would be legal and what would not be legal.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're trying to address these things. All about the same thing. That's it for now.
Okay, I want to make sure I captured that note for when Mr. Khan reviews. Okay. Are there any other questions or observations for this policy? Bob, is that the only part in this policy that was up for review?
I believe there are some items lower that were just questions, but they
Okay.
didn't have any modifications. So there's a question, would small companies be able to meet this requirement, take this into consideration? And as I had previously just discussed, that the $2 million threshold would then allow us to also include our smaller local contracts in projects around the district, but not necessarily these big projects. And I believe they could still be subcontractors under certain circumstances as well.
Which will include, excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt, but which means that would include minority and women-owned businesses as well. Is that correct?
Yes, so that would, I believe that falls more under our minority and women-owned business policy.
Okay, and then my other question is, so I'm noticing the language of apprenticeship. I keep reading this over and over again, and I'm trying to really make sure that I understand all that this contract is saying to us. And I see the words apprenticeship, and I appreciate apprenticeship programs. But is anything in here, and I might be missing it, anything in here that's mentioned it with these apprenticeship programs that they're the people that are supervising them, or whatever the language is, are actual certified contractors or laborers?
Yeah, so your apprenticeship training program would have to be registered, and in order to get your registration, you'd have to fall under where you'd be supervised by
Okay,
somebody that is qualified.
thank you.
Mhm.
All right.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just wondering if anybody had any other questions or observations.
I just had a question, and
Mhm.
it could be Bob referring to another policy. When you talk about the apprenticeship program, do we have anything in this policy that says that they must allow, I guess, the community or possibly students of the district an opportunity to be a part of this program? Because in terms of the language, because that doesn't read that it should include either students or community members. Can we put something like in this one, or do we put it in the other policy?
It would actually be applicable to this policy because the other one doesn't speak to apprenticeship programs.
Yeah, that's a good question, and that's definitely something that we would follow up with David, because I know general procurement law doesn't allow you to give geographical preference. So I don't know if that would therefore apply to any trading program included in your RFP as well. So we should, Danielle, if you could note it though, as an item that we could definitely discuss with David when we go for final approval.
Or community members. Yep, I'm doing it right now. Community members, okay. Got it. All right. So let me see. Comment. Okay. Go ahead. So I just added it there. Okay, for the
Okay.
apprenticeship program. Okay. All right, moving down. Were there any other sections, Bob, that were up for question or?
The other
checking?
two notes were just minor edits, and I believe they're both good to go. We kind of wanted to leave them so we could keep track of all
Okay.
since last meeting. But yes, I believe.
Oh, I see the or designate. Okay, I got that. See that. And I see a question.
Yes.
Mhm.
So that question is, if a company did something bad and we found out as a subcontractor, could we disqualify them? And does the language above cover us? And I think the consensus is that we believe that it does. However, we want to keep this question up there for when the solicitor reviews it.
Okay, all right. Noted. Okay. And scrolling down, that would be it. Okay.
And yeah, that would cover any previous questions and any suggested edits so far.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Opening up a whole nother browser. All righty. So does anybody have any other additional questions or comments about this policy? All right. Hearing none. Thank you, Mr. Kaufman.
Thank you.
And we will be moving on to our discussion led by our chair, Ms. Hopkins. And Ms. Hopkins has actually already gone over the rules of engagement. And I appreciate her for that. So our first conversation is around elementary uniform discussion. Ms.
So, before we pull up the time, not the timeline, I'm sorry, before we pull up the policy of 2212, let's, just to let everybody know that we're going to have it, we're having to issue a high-level timeline. So that's going to be, so right now, we've already begun the, communication with our principals and our staff. We're going to send out a survey link to families, as well as the staff, which hopefully will be out by May, just to gather feedback regarding the school uniform policy. So parents, please be on the lookout in your emails. And then for those parents that don't have email address, that's going to be the link is going to be provided on our website, on the district's website. And then also we're going to advertise the survey on social media. So hopefully we have all our avenues crossed so that we can make sure that everyone gets their voice. The last day we're going to complete that survey and have it turned in will be on May the 19th. So that's the deadline. And then we're going to discuss those results and talk about those results of the uniform policy, and we'll have a discussion, and then we'll talk about the vote at the July meeting. Yes, July.
June.
I'm trying to get these months together. Woo! So well, no, I thought June, we were just going to discuss the results, and then we were going to have a full discussion at our July meeting with the board,
Okay.
with the remainder of the board. Okay, so policy, can we see that policy, ma'am?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to interject because I don't want to leave this discussion with the thinking that there will be a July meeting. We will take that under advisement and follow back up with you, Ms. Hopkins.
Thank you so much for that reminder, because I just realized, yes, we don't do a July or August. So I'm going to retract what I said and go back to June. Thank you, sir, for the reminder.
All right, so I would like to interject and just ground us in our conversation. With the way our uniform policies or dress code policies currently work in our district, the elementary school uniform dress code is a policy that basically gives guidelines around what students can wear. It provides guidance around multicolored shirts or different colored shirts for different schools, as well as slacks and dresses and enclosed shoes. For our middle schools and high schools, there is a dress code, which basically says, these are the things that you can't wear. So like you can't wear belly shirts and things like that, or see-through clothing. Whereas the uniform code talks about, this is the uniform and here are the parameters in which you couldn't wear a uniform at elementary schools. So this is the policy that we have before us. So the question did come up, should we continue to have a uniform policy for elementary school students? And so we did put together a very simple two question survey to ask our elementary school parents to get their feedback on should we continue to have a uniform policy for elementary students. I would also like to note that in this policy, there is gender language in here, which will be updated as well.
To be
Gender neutral. Ms. Hopkins?
Ma'am, I'm sorry. I was trying to find my notes and I can't find them. I'm really discombobulated right this second. Does any, oh, wait a minute. I think I do have a question. When will the survey link be shared out? Ms. Favor, again, that survey link will be shared out on the 8th of May. See your slide, in your slide, what page was that? I think that was 7.
can go
on
back
the
to
page
7.
7, of your, of the slide that is attached to, the link that is, it'll give you a high level timeline if you can
Mhm.
see that, okay?
I'm going to suggest, I don't know if it's been put in there, but it may have been, but we need to put the link to the presentation back in the chat so that people who may have signed on after we started can see the link.
Thank you, Dr. B. Coates. We'll do
Thank you.
that. Mhm. All right, Ms. Hopkins?
That's all I have on this one. Does anyone have any
Okay.
questions? I mean, until we get the survey, anyone else have any? Excuse
I
me,
would also like
questions?
to add, working with Ms. Abramson, we will be advertising this heavily on social media as well. Because we recognize that not every elementary school parent has an email address on file with us. We do know that the majority do, especially since we started online registration process 3 years ago, which requires an email address. But again, we know that sometimes things change, email addresses change, and we are looking at different avenues and getting the word out, number one, and making the link accessible to all parents to be able to provide feedback to us about the uniform policy. All right. Okay.
Oh,
All righty. So I guess we're moving along to our recess discussion.
okay,
I'm sorry, I had to get myself unmuted.
it's okay.
I'm assuming that the principals will have time to talk together about, their buildings, et cetera.
Right, hence why we're asking, we're sending out the survey not only to families and communities, but we're sending it out to the staff and the principals as well.
Got it.
Okay? Anybody else? Okay, we're moving forward.
All righty. There we go. Recess discussion with our cute little picture of our babies. All righty.
All right, so in policy 246, it talks about wellness, and in that policy, it mentions age-appropriate physical activities and opportunities, outdoor and indoor recess, lunch. She talked about intramurals, physical education, and then it also talks about physical activity can't be a means of punishment. District schools shall contribute to efforts to provide opportunities to accumulate at least 60 minutes of age-appropriate physical activity daily, as recommended by the CDC. Opportunities offered at school will augment physical activity outside the school environment, such as outdoor play, at home sports, etc. Did you want to pull up the policy, or are we good with just the narrative?
Yeah, I tried to make it a little easier for all of us. These sections that I pulled out were the physical activity section of said policy that applies to conversation.
I'm with you. I just wanted to make sure that you didn't want to do a whole policy review and we can just do the little snippets. So I'm
Yep.
good with that. So let's have a discussion regarding, I know that I got a few emails in regards to the recess policy. So those parents that let me know that they were coming, could you let's chat. Let's have a discussion regarding these policy, the recess policy. So
Excuse me, Ms. Hopkins.
yes, sir.
Since there is something that was provided to the district in reference to a proposal, can we at least allow people to understand what's in that?
Mhm.
And then maybe go into discussion, because I thought this was what people were recommending, unless I'm incorrect, and I could be.
You're not incorrect, and I keep thinking that I got in charge of the slide, and I'm not. So, and can you do me a favor? I got old eyes, and even with my glasses,
Oh.
not working.
Yes, I could try and make this bigger. All right, give me seconds. Alrighty. And I was thinking that perhaps the
Is that not
author,
on the bottom of the thing?
It
Where's,
is,
where's
it's
it?
at the bottom.
It's at the bottom where a magnifying glass is?
okay, wait a minute.
Next to page 1 through 5?
Thank you. You're the
Then there's a
best.
plus sign?
Is that better?
Much better, thank you. so
All
much.
right.
I appreciate you. All right, so,
If perhaps the parent that drafted this document would want to walk us through it, perhaps?
well, that's why I was actually asking. I forgot that we did have a copy of it. And so I was actually asking the parents, did they want to address what they had submitted to us? And I don't see anybody yet.
Ms. Thomas had, sorry. Oh, there's
Oh.
a hand raised.
There is, I can't see it. Why don't I see it? Okay, well, go ahead.
It's
Allow
Jamie
her
F.
in.
Jamie F.
Please, now allow her in.
Mhm.
Hi, I think I'm unmuted.
Yes, you are.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Jamie Fuller, parent of a first grader at Ardmore and also second grade teacher at Ardmore. I am not the one who wrote this, but I have been in conversation with them, and I do think some of the other parents and the ones who wrote it are here or will be here. I didn't want you to think anybody wasn't here on behalf of that.
No worries.
But I will say, you know, from the different points of different hats that I wear,
Mhm.
as a researcher, you know, you kind of see that the higher test scores are correlated directly with greater number of minutes of recess. You know, that is to say, more physical activity yields greater concentration, memory. You know, less you see suppression and physical aggression, and therefore more focus. I realize also, of course, as a teacher, we're balancing that out against all of our academic and curricular demands. But, you know, on balance, I would say that, you know, our intervention block is very important. I, you know, utilize it every day, but I do think 5 minutes less of intervention block would certainly still give us all the benefits of the intervention block, but also give the kids more time to play. Cause, you know, it's like herding cats by the time we get outside and get ourselves together and then recess and then back in, you know, they're barely playing 10 minutes or whatnot. And I really like to see happy kids running around. It's wonderful.
Well,
I'll
thank
leave it at that and let one of the other parents step in. Thank you.
you, Miss Jamie. Appreciate it. Now, guess what? I do have the ability to see hands now. Woo-hoo. So I see Miss Liz Moorhead. Would you let her in?
Hi, this is actually Claire Hughes. I'm here with Liz Moorhead.
Oh, hi, Miss Claire.
Hi, I spoke at the board meeting.
Miss Claire, would you please do me a huge favor? One of the rules of engagement is for if you're going to address the floor, would you please take yourself and put yourself on camera, please?
Sure.
Thank you, ma'am.
Let me do that. We're just struggling to figure out how to do that.
Should be on the bottom of your screen, left side, where it says video.
No, we only have audio options. Is that
Okay,
normal? I'm sorry, it's not giving us the option.
no worries. Please proceed.
So, the parent who drafted this is not able to attend, but we were in communication. And essentially it is that the amount of recess that the children have is lower and lower, dwindling. And we know what the recommendations are. We know that it's correlated directly to higher test scores, to healthier children, to better mental health. So like this is pretty much established science, right? And so there it is, academic and mental health outcomes. There's benefits to recess. Originally, you probably remember that we were asking that the school district create a standard policy across all elementary schools that 30 minutes of recess is guaranteed. And then as we went further and started working on drafting this proposal, we came to understand that due to scheduling issues, 30 minutes might be really, really difficult for schools. And so we came to a middle ground of 20 minutes. I think that there's also been some research that says, better classroom behavior, better social benefits, more connected and a positive school climate. These are all things we all really want for our kids. And I know that you guys want this for our kids too. That's why you're here. So we're recommending that the policy specify minimum of 20 minutes of recess, actual scheduled recess for all the children, so that they have time to actually engage in free play and activity. It takes children, somebody already said herding cats, right? It takes some time to get all those little kids in line. I can't imagine. It takes me 20 minutes to get 2 kids out the door, right? Like, how are they getting 28 kids out the door? Getting those kids outside, giving them a moment to sort of settle themselves. I know that my daughter and a couple of little friends had like a rotation, and like one kid picked what they played on Monday, one had Tuesday, one had Thursday, one had Friday. And that's, I think, pretty high level for recess. And so just giving them just 10 more minutes compared to the loss of losing 10 minutes of instructional time, which is a fraction, adding 10 minutes to the recess time, doubling it, is going to make a much bigger impact. And I hope I explained that in any way that made any sense, because I don't have a script this time.
We actually can see a little correlate with what you're saying with the document that was shared by Ms. Moorhead. So yeah, I think we're good.
Okay. So I hope that makes sense, and that you can see where we're coming from. And we certainly can see where you're coming from. There's a lot to fit into the school day, and the school day is only as long as it is. And we understand about teacher contracts. My kid actually said, like, they could make it longer, just make the school day end 20 minutes later. And I'm like, well, no, because that's not fair to everybody, but that's really good problem solving. I'm glad that they taught you that at William Penn School District, because they see what they don't have. And we just want to give them a chance to be kids, just really be kids as much as they can. And I think it's noted in the proposal we made that socioeconomic factors go into how little the recess is provided for kids. And you guys all know where we are, right? You know that we're fighting to get fair funding for our school. And I so appreciate you for everything that you have done to get us closer, right? But we can give our kids a leg up in this one thing. We can make sure that they're getting the developmentally appropriate amount, or closer to it, of physical play, free play, that will help boost test scores. It will help with classroom morale, classroom behavior, and it will give them a chance to be kids and to have what kids need.
Thanks, Ms. Claire. I'm going to move on so that others can chime in as well. So, and if you need to come back to be to address the floor again, I'll be more than happy to bring you back on. But let me let Miss Marie Louise Faber in, and so that she can address the floor.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Hey.
Yeah, so I'm a parent at both Ardmore Avenue and the middle school. I've been in the district now for 9 years. When I first heard this come up again from a parent, a friend, neighbor, as that when they addressed this with the school district, their response was, oh, this had never been brought up before. And I was sort of slapped in the face, because that's absolutely not true. I sort of rotate through what I try to fight for on any given day for our children across the school district. I have 2 girls, but I have a Girl Scout troop. I'm involved in home and school, and I sort of see these kids as my own, and responsibility beyond just mine too. So I wanted to bring up, beyond what parents had already said, was one, what is the reality? So the kids have, I'm not exactly sure, 10 minutes or so of recess. That's not what happens. And it was sort of addressed, but just to be clear, they have to line up. Whoever the adult in the room is in the cafeteria that's in charge, they wait and wait and wait until every single last child is quiet. I like, that's a unrealistic expectation, especially at lunch and recess time. And so they are losing minutes and minutes, and there goes. And so like my kids come home and they're like, oh, we played 2 minutes. They probably aren't that far off. So that's upsetting. I don't know how many times addressed the taking away of recess over and over again. The last time it happened, my daughter's in 5th grade. She's on student council. I said, you know what? You need to talk to them because nobody listens to me anymore. I'm just a pain in the ass. So she went and had a meeting with the principal and the security guard and the teacher that oversees the student program. And they had a wonderful discussion. I haven't heard anything recently, so that's good news. Maybe it sunk in and it'll last through the end of the school year. But again, these things keep coming up over and over again. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up was, so in the policy currently, there is this note to 60 minutes of physical activity. And I would like somebody to define exactly what the school district is doing to support that. COVID happened, a lot of changes happened. One thing that got stuck, at least at Ardmore, is that we're now on a 10-day rotation for our specials. So kids don't even get gym once a week. They get it every 30, 40 days. I can't do the math. That's a lot. There are really no after-school programs at the moment, at least not at Ardmore, as far as physical activity. We used to have a running club. I don't think there's much in the way at other elementary schools. There's not neighborhood programs. There's no Boys and Girls Club anymore. So where are these kids expected to get their 60 minutes? And where's the support from the school district? I really don't want to hear, oh, the 2 minutes it takes to get from their classroom to the specials room. I'm sorry, that's not okay. That should not count towards those 60 minutes. So again, things I've brought up in the past years. I'm glad we're having this discussion now. I welcome any feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Favor. Anyone else? And then I'll open it up to, I guess, board members to have a discussion. I see somebody else. I see somebody's hand.
Ms. Hughes has raised her hand
It
again.
is Ms. Hughes.
Hi, I'm sorry, it's Liz Moorhead this time.
Oh, it's Ms. Moorhead. Hi, Ms. Moorhead. Go ahead.
Points I wanted to make is that I know that several schools have addressed this year.
Mhm.
I was speaking to my principal about it, but I also found out that at Ardmore, they were discussing it. And so it just makes sense to have it at a district level.
Mhm.
And I had another point, but I lost it just now because I'm nervous. So that's all.
Don't be nervous. Like I said, we in our meetings, we are a team and we're family. So don't be nervous. We're good.
Thank
It's all
you.
good.
I appreciate you.
So if you do remember, just raise your hand again and we'll address it again, okay?
Thanks so much.
No worries. If I don't see anybody, oh, I do. I have a Miss Kimberly Tong. You want to open the floor to her?
Yes, I was just going along the lines of, I know that the social emotional learning part for our students is very big. And sometimes maybe having that recess time extra maybe will add to them being able to interact with their peers, work on their social emotional well-being, while also having some time to interact by play. So sometimes maybe that will also help, because I know that social emotional learning is really big right now, trying to make up for all the time that our children have spent in COVID and during the COVID times. This might be a way to have like a structured type of play where they are outside, they are moving, they are doing thing with their peers, they're getting in a little bit of that activity, getting a little bit of that pent up energy out while still doing things that promote their social well-being. That was kind of what I was thinking.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your feedback. Now, I don't know who Home is, but can we open the floor to Home? And Home, could you identify yourself for us, please?
I'm sorry, this is Muhammad Bangura. I'm
Hey.
I didn't know that it was saved as Home. So
It's
but
all right. How you doing?
I'm good. I would like to add
And
though,
wait a minute, Muhammad, can you just, for those who don't know who you are, would you identify what school you represent and what grade you represent?
I'm in the 11th grade and I represent the Greenman Avenue campus, the high school, Penwood High School. And I would just like to add, based off of the recess part, I also too went to Ardmore, and for me, I really liked recess. Like recess was a part of gonna get that social part of the day and all that other stuff. So I feel like if we did extend having recess there, like I feel like that would be very beneficial to the kids as far as that, because there's more to it than just walking to school, seeing your classmates, you're in class, you got to do work. But then when it comes to recess, everybody want to have fun, see their friends that's outside of the class. And I feel like giving that more time for the kids to have time for their with their friends would be very beneficial to them. But that's all I had to say.
Thank you so much. And again, for those who do not know, Mr. Muhammad is part of our student board representative. So thank you so much for, giving your word to us and addressing the board. I see Miss Moorhead. Did you remember what it was?
I'm back. Yes.
Go ahead. We're ready.
One of the things that I appreciate about William Penn is that we make sure to care for the whole child. I know that we take a lot of pains to make sure that every kid is fed. Even, during COVID, during summer, we make sure that everybody has a meal. And recess, I think, is a part of that, caring for the whole child, making sure that they have physical activity, that they're getting that energy out that's maybe bottled up. And fresh air and sunshine. Yeah, exactly. Vitamin D. Those are whole child concerns. And I think that just goes in line with what we're already doing at William Penn.
Thank you very much. I'm glad you remembered. So I'm gonna, if I don't see any more hands coming from our attendees, so I'm gonna swing back because I really wanted the parents to address us. So I'm gonna swing back to the panelists. And board members, if you don't mind, I'm gonna make us last. Any principals want to address? I can't see. Wait a minute. Let me go back. And before I actually ask I'm going to start with principals. Ms. Williams.
Good evening. Thank you. So I listen to parents. I'm a parent myself, and I agree 100% that we need to take care of the whole child. Sometimes I think that what we have to keep in mind is it just might not look traditional. So when I hear recess, at East Lansdowne, my students have 10 minutes with their teacher, but it's back directly up against lunch. So they have a 40-minute break altogether. They have 30 minutes of lunch. They have 10 minutes of recess. When we have the staffing ability, I want to get kids outside. I want to let them play. I think it's so important for them to first run off the energy. And second, I think Ms. Moorhead just said it, just be exposed to the sunlight, get that extra air. It makes a difference. If we can't get outside, then we're inside. We have games. We might jump rope. The kids may play basketball, but it may not feel to the kids like a traditional recess because they're not outside for 20 whole minutes. In addition, I did hear a parent say, hey, at my school, we may not have extracurricular activities. And I made it a very big, huge point to align with the East Lansdowne Athletic Association, who comes to East Lansdowne Elementary every day. And they have every sport that you can imagine: cheerleading, basketball, flag football, soccer. Because it's extremely important to me. I worked with the Mayor Bland all last summer to ensure that these programs would be at East Lansdowne. In addition to that, we try to offer in-house things that they can do. If they're not doing gym, then they do music. If they're not doing music, we're encouraging our teachers to give them brain breaks. So I just want to make sure that as we continue to discuss and think about ways to make sure the whole child is taken care of, sometimes I just want us to remember to think outside the box, because it can't always happen the traditional way, given the academic rigor that we do want them to have. So we can't always put the 20 minutes in one big block. So it may be spread across the day, but the kids do get time to have mental breaks, the physical breaks. At least I can speak for East Lansdowne, but I would 100% say that we're all on the same page. We do want the kids to have everything that they need to be complete whole children. So it's nothing that's being done, if it's being done, it's certainly not malicious, because we don't want the kids to have it, because I'd argue that our kids are our why, and we're always looking for opportunities to support them and make sure that they're healthy, both physically, mentally, and academically, emotionally, and socially.
Thank you
Thank you.
very much. Anyone else?
I want to piggyback on Dr. Williams, what she mentioned earlier in terms of it not being intentional, and sometimes it's just a function of the schedule that we have, and we just have to find creative ways to ensure that our kids are getting the activity that they need. So I do believe that recess is extremely important. The energy that the kids need to burn out, it occurs all throughout the day, for different reasons and at different grade levels. I do want to reinforce or restate that kids are given brain breaks during the course of the day. And if there's times where, at least I can speak for my building, but I believe we share the same philosophy in our schools. There are times where unplanned breaks occur because teachers realize that kids need that, but it's just in an untraditional way. I do want to talk a little bit more about the East Lansdowne Athletic Association, because I am on council in East Lansdowne, and I work closely with Mr. Barnwell and Mayor Bland, and I work closely with them in developing those programs that Ms. Williams is able to benefit from. But what we're looking for is expansion. So, and forgive me for not remembering the parent that spoke from Lansdowne, but we have been in contact with Lansdowne in terms of bringing athletics and other programs there. We're going to be talking with the community of Darby really soon too. So just keep your ears and eyes open. So we're trying to move into spaces that don't have those programs, or may have had them, but they're no longer there anymore. And part of what we're trying to do is build coalitions with schools. They're low-cost programs, and our primary focus is to really get kids re-engaged with those types of programs that would suit their social and emotional needs.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Now, Dr. Bicos, I do see your hand, but I'm going to let Dr. Watson Bowie go first. Is that okay? Just nod or give a thumbs up. Is that okay? Okay. Can y'all go ahead, Dr. Watson Bowie?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me an opportunity to speak. So at our schools, we definitely have 15 minutes of recess built into our time. We're pretty intentional about that and trying to ensure that they at least had that amount of time. But one of the things that we also do at our schools throughout the day is the brain breaks. And I know that it might seem like it's just about an activity that's mental, but our teachers have incorporated those opportunities throughout transitioning time from activities. They get the students up and moving. They do use Go Noodle. Sometimes they have different types of videos that the kids can participate in. Even if, I myself have walked by and kids are doing their brain break activity and they're like, come on in, Dr. Watson Bowie, we want you to do this with us. So those happen throughout the day at different points, which kind of help support a little bit more time where it's appropriate for them to kind of decompress and then kind of move into their next activity for whatever the lesson might be. So they've incorporated that now outside of the 15 minutes. Also, we do try to extend time for recess at different points, not every single day, but a lot of times the teachers are showing the students different activities that they might have learned in gym or PE, and then they try to go out and use that as an opportunity to have like constructive recess play for the students. And this year we were able to get donations from our local associations in our community, so that when they were inside and it was, rainy weather, cold weather, they would have indoor games and activities that they can play in the classroom that was still safe enough for them to play if they had to have indoor recess because of a rainy day. And or if it's too cold. And the last thing is that a lot of times when our gym is not being used, sometimes our teachers will take the students into the gym where, outside of lunch times, in addition to doing the indoor recess game. So they might go to the gym and do a quick game with them and let the kids kind of stretch and do that. So we've found different ways, even though the schedule might look exactly, tight with that, but we found different ways to incorporate movement and activities that might not be accounted for in the schedule each day. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Ms. Birch, would you just, if you don't mind, I'm going to give Dr. B. Coates.
I'm going to defer to Ms. Birch.
Yes,
and
sir.
come back after Ms. Birch.
Yes, sir. Ms. Birch.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Hopkins, and thank you, Dr. B. Coates, and good evening, panel, and I'm glad to see so many Ardmore stakeholders. And so I did want to say that I did hear what you said, Marie Louise and Ms. Fuller and all the people that I have the pleasure of doing this work with. And our roster this year does reflect a 20-minute recess in grades K-3. So I did want to let you know that I cut down some intervention time for K-3 to have that 20-minute recess. I'm also, much like my other colleagues, look at the brain breaks that are intentionally. All of our teachers know that they can use Go Noodle, that they take those intentional moments throughout the school day when they're transitioning between subject areas, and those happen. This year, we also have the Fun Fridays, which was something that our staff asked for. That's a free 45-minute where we capitalize on the win time, giving students what they need, which is the social emotional, and that is planned by the teachers themselves. So please ask your children about the Fun Fridays. We also have the game cart at Ardmore. We raised enough money to have a game cart circulating on the first floor and also on the second floor. And then I'd also like to share that we're partnering with Playworks. So I believe in more recess time, but I also believe that it should be organized. And so I have engaged Playworks. We've talked about it, home and school, trying to raise money for that. And I have earmarked Title I funding for the Tier 1 program, where our staff will be taught how to engage students in play by a staff member 2 days a week. And they will come into the classroom, practice the games and play them. And we will basically have stations, because when you do have a longer recess time, that's when you get to see some of the social problems arise. We did see that during PSSA when we gave 30-minute recesses, that you can really see some of the challenges, per se, that students have with having that non-directed time. So I just look forward to continuing to push this. Grades 4 through 6 do have only the 10 minutes, but we would have to take a serious look at what are we going to cut, what can we do differently? And I look forward to engaging my team, the home and school, my teachers, on how we can make that happen in the upper grades. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Birch. And then I got Dr. Bicos, I'm gonna put you on hold again. I got Ms. Fields and, oh, Ms. Oates, hi. Let's start with Ms. Fields first.
Good evening, everyone. How's everyone doing?
Well, thank you. How you
Great.
doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good.
I do want to, I guess, co-sign with all of my principal colleagues around what we're doing in our buildings around for our students. We're ensuring that they get outside. We're ensuring that they have recess. Most of our teachers do at some point in the morning and then again in the afternoon, a brain break in the room where they stop and take a break. We know we can't sit still for long stretches of time, so we know the children can't do it either. It may be a walk in the hall, it may be actually, I watch my little ones that skirt themselves across the hallway, that they do monkey walks from one room to the other just to get the energy out of themselves in the course of their day and in their transition. So we work that out into the day. Our recess are also backed up against, like Dr. Williams said, backed up against our lunches, and they're 15 minutes. When we have inclement weather, we keep our IAs and them in the cafeteria and do also create some activities for them to do. We have a couple of our 5th and 6th graders, we have jobs called sidekicks. So they have jobs, they get to get out and walk and do, and they're doing more things around the building. So they're getting that energy out. At the end of the day, we have a few people who are able to take few kids out at a time. This year, we brought a street soccer USA to our building. And that was an additional half an hour for K-3. I'm sorry, not K-3, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, and then 5th and 6th got an additional 20 minutes, half an hour as well of soccer in their day. We're looking at a contract with them for next year so that more kids and for the entire year, not just the 3 months that we had, will happen, and making sure that the soccer in our area is what most of our kids, they come with soccer balls to school. And so we're trying to build that for them. We're looking to get some nets and a place for them to continue to play throughout the year and add that in. It really helped with their behavior and their energy for the students that were selected this year to start it. So I definitely want to work with the Darby Borough to get that into place over at Park Lane. I do understand what parents said. I'm glad that parents looked at the instructional block and the time that's actually allotted, and how we have requirements of time to get instruction in order to make the goals we've set for ourselves and for our students and for our families. In order to us to go forward, we have to make sure that we are getting instruction in. Instruction can be fun, and it may not look, I believe someone already said that, it's not going to look like recess to you or to those kids, but they are getting the breaks. They are not sitting extended amount of time. I know they need more, and we're working on getting that for them. So that is my piece for the evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fields. Principal Oates, it's your turn.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So just like all of my colleagues stated earlier, at Bell Avenue, we do have 15 minutes of recess prior to lunch. Our students also have gym one day every week. So that is consistent. And we were also excited this year. We rolled out yoga and mindfulness as one of our supplementals. So that was very huge, and students learning how to self-regulate their emotions and allow them to focus more on academics. We also too incorporate the brain breaks, and currently we have basketball taking place as one of our supplementals after school. We also have dance in classrooms. So all of our 5th graders are moving their bodies, learning how to formally do ballroom dancing, and our 4th graders at Bell Avenue are participating in Latin dance. So I do agree with the parents. I think physical activity and learning should be a balance, and we do agree that students need to move and exert that energy. So I agree with all of my colleagues, and we do see the benefits of those brain breaks, which Dr. Williams stated earlier, that those other physical activities that are impromptu in the learning don't look traditional, but the students do have opportunities to move around in the classroom. We even do have different types of centers. So the teachers are very intentional about making sure the students are moving and taking breaks in the learning. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. And then, oh, look who's here. Hi, Miss Catherine Smith. How are you? You're still on mute.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Hear you wonderfully.
Okay, great. Wonderful. So also at Evans, like my colleagues do, we're able to get a 15-minute recess in, and our students get absolutely every bit of that 15 minutes because our lunches are back to back. So we are moving students out and out to the recess yard as another group is coming in. I agree that I wish it were more, that we could give children more opportunity to move. We do incorporate brain breaks and Go Noodle. in our older groups, one of our supplementals is step and drumming. So we have children moving during that time. Right now we are working on our talent show where our students are moving and dancing and doing all that good stuff. I have been able to incorporate a second recess for my autistic support classroom. So they have a lunch recess, 15 minutes, and then additionally in the afternoon, because of programming, how their programming works, I'm able to give them an additional 15 minutes outside. So they do get that half hour outside, as well as gym. Most of my students get gym twice a week. So I do believe strongly in that balance between physical, academic, and that benefit for the social emotional health of the students. So I am working with reaching out to also get some after school physical activities in.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Appreciate you. And any other principals we didn't hear from? Okay, I think we're good. Now, Ms. Oates, I just want to make sure you just got your hand up and you didn't take it down. You didn't want to comment again? Okay, and how about you, Ms. Birch? Did you want to comment again?
No, I'm sorry. My dog was barking, so I do. I do apologize.
No worries. I'm just glad mine's haven't acted up today, so I'm good. So I'm going to move it over now to Dr. B. Coates. I don't think I see any more hands. Dr. B. Coates, go ahead.
Sure. Good evening. I do want to start off by saying thank you to the families that have raised this concern. Very, very well aware of what the research says about recess and its benefits. One of the things about research is that you have to also look deeper at the conditions upon which the research speaks to and the resources that are available. I am hopeful that one day we will not have to always compromise some of the things that we do because we don't have the resources. And so I'll start off with that. But then I'll also say we do provide SEL, social emotional learning, daily. That is a requirement. So just like we have requirements for instructional time, we also have requirements for social educational, SEL. And so in the 2021 school year, it was a requirement. It was a requirement in 21-22, and it still is. It can be up to 30 minutes daily, but it has to be at least 20 minutes. During that time, you are talking about things that are outside of the normal instructional realm, such as English language arts, mathematics. And that is a time that I firmly believe that schools can be creative and do physical activity things within the SEL time period. That is in addition to what goes on with lunch and the 10 to 20 to 15-minute recess, because we've heard different times this evening. The other thing I would say is this. I don't believe that I could support a policy that dictates what teachers do during their day. One of the things I've heard in this district is that teachers appreciate their ability to be creative. And I think if the board adopts policies that are very directive, I think we would run the risk of eliminating some level of creativity. I think one of the things that you heard, or all of us heard tonight, was that although we are a school district, each one of these elementary school leaders that I'm very pleased to work with have done something different. And they're doing what's best for their community based upon input and feedback. You've heard some principals talk about supplementals. Those are units that are provided to teachers to have activities typically either before or after school. Various schools have supplementals that do revolve around physical activity. Schools have the ability to come up with what those supplementals are used for. So I don't believe we are perfect by a long shot. Is there more work that probably needs to be done in this arena? Yes. But I think that if we do something that is mandatory, that requires everybody to be the exact same way across the district, I think you will take away the creativity that these professionals have talked about tonight that they've created in their school environment. Obviously, I do not make the final decision around policy, so I'm going to support what the board of directors implements and how we move forward. But I would encourage the board as well as our staff, let's continue to have conversations. Maybe there are some additional things that we can do so that when we come back to this conversation, we can start talking about what are some things that we could do across the board that we believe everybody can implement. And so that's what I would just share as I've listened to the comments and the information that's been shared tonight. But thank you for the opportunity to share.
Thank you, Dr. Bikos. And also in our Q&A, I have Ms. Nicole Miller. It sounds as if the belief is that, and I think she was saying recess is separate from academic rigor. I like to stretch our understanding and thinking and state that, I think she's still saying recess is just as important as academic rigor and is, excuse me, synonymous with it. Tons of research support this. I was late to the meeting, but wanted to ensure that we are all on the same page. I didn't want to not mention Miss Claire Finnan, even though it was responded to, but I want to bring it to everyone's attention. My children are too young to be currently enrolled in the district, excuse me. But hearing that many classes only get 10 minutes of recess is disheartening. As others have mentioned, there is a strong correlation between time given to an unstructured play and test scores. As a taxpayer and future student parent, I want to live in a district that listens to science when structuring their day to benefit not only the children, but by extension, the community as a whole. Thank you for sharing your comments and your thought. And Miss Anna wanted to just second what Miss Claire had said earlier in the discussion. Miss Claire Hughes also wanted everyone to know, oh no, she had a question. How much physical activity can students get in a brain break? 2 minutes of wiggling. That was a question. And then her last question, can they run around the classroom, engage other students, use their imagination? Did anybody want to answer those questions? And I think if I remember, Miss Claire's students were coming from Ardmore. So Miss Birch, did you want to address that?
I can speak on behalf of all of us because we
Okay.
all do the brain breaks. It's
Okay.
not just an Ardmore thing. So I've seen during COVID, post-pandemic, teachers do an excellent job of engaging students in physical activity. Of course, Ms. Hughes, with being safe, some of that activity within the classroom will be limited. But if you figure a self-contained classroom, let's say, for example, what a K-3 classroom where the teacher is responsible for teaching every single subject, you have multiple opportunities to build in brain breaks to the tune of 5, 10, 15, 20. You could easily have 20 minutes worth between different subject areas. I have seen my teachers be creative while students are walking in the hallways. I think that one of my colleagues mentioned that. So I think that rigidity that I think we imagine that's happening in schools, I would like to say Ardmore is this joyful place. Students are, we're not walking in single file lines or being, they're allowed to move. Is it equivalent to that 60-minute that's being proposed? Probably not. But I think I would echo what Dr. Bikos is saying is join us in this conversation. Join the table, knowing that we have a 90-minute math block, a 120-minute ELA block, science and social studies, and an academic intervention time, K-6. And how can we be creative? My lunches and my recesses are back to back. That could be 50 minutes that, it's non-academic time. So I think this is a collaborative conversation. I'm willing to engage you, Ms. Hughes, you know where I am. And we've had this conversation since my tenure. And I don't think there's just one solution. I think we can partner with some organizations to bring some physical activities to Ardmore. And I look forward to being able to do that. I hope I've somewhat answered your question.
Okay. And then, oh, I got Miss, no, I'm sorry, Dr. Williams. I got Dr. Williams. She wants to respond as well.
Yep, thank you, Ms. Hopkins. So I just wanted to add to that because I want to make sure to make it clear that at least at East Lansdowne, brain breaks are a supplement. They're in addition to all of the things that you heard. So I appreciate the comment from the parent. Hey, listen, can they only get 2 minutes of wiggles, right? Because it does feel like that, but that's a supplement, right? So that's as they're learning, we may be in this 120-minute math block for a long time. Let's pause, babies, and let's have a brain break. Let's move, get the wiggles out. Let's look at a video. And so no, it's not a brain break. It's just that, a brain break. It's not intended to be a strenuous physical activity in which they are being quite imaginative as they would if they were outside, maybe engaging in play. So I could see how that could, because we're harping on brain breaks, but I'd like to think that my colleagues and we use it as a supplement to increase the amount of activities that students get throughout the course of the day. And it's not the activity that we're saying that we rely on for them to get that physical activity. But I think that was a fabulous question and did need some clarity. And I just wanted to add that it is supplemental to what we do and it is not exclusive.
Okay, thank you so much. Now I do see either Miss Claire or Miss Moorhead's hand up, but before I go to excuse me, your hand, I want to finish reading these Q&As. I'm sorry, y'all, allergies are kicking in. So Miss Claire Finnan is responding. I encourage the board to consider the difference between other types of physical activity and quote unquote recess, which the CDC defines as unstructured play. Recess/unstructured play is time without a specific activity being dictated. The chance to make our own decisions in movement and to explore their creativity is what is largely important, not just movement. Many of the comments here are pushing back on the idea of unstructured play and by extension, ignoring the actual medical recommendations by the scientists. Anybody want to take that one? Ms. Smith.
Hi, yeah. Yeah, I get the idea of that. We definitely want that unstructured play and we want that as well. It is those time constraints that we have within the schedule and the lack of resources. I could say that I could see trimming down time on my lunches if I had resources of somebody else to watch kids for an additional 10 minutes at recess. But in the case of human resource, it's teachers who take turns going outside for recess duty. So there would be ways to do that if there were more human resources, which then of course we know adds to budgets and whatnot. So I think that nobody is saying that it is the ideal to have brain breaks, but we are still giving children the opportunity to, be imaginative, to move and to do that in lieu of having the ability to provide that additional time under the constraints of our scheduling.
Thank you. Mr. Williams, I see your hand is up. Did you want to respond?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, and going back to Principal Birch's comment in regards to her being able to hire an entity to come in and support her teachers and really training them and their kids on, what play looks like. I think that it's an evolution. So, for me, at some point, I see the kids being released to be empowered to be able to do other things. We have, and I will say most of our schools have traditional play spaces. So you have a playground, you have a basketball court, and the kids, for the most part, they'll have free choice. Sometimes our kids, engage in things that, we would prefer them not to, but I think that's just the nature of their development. So, in looking at the parents' comment, I'm not sure that it was meant to be dictated, but more so providing other opportunities and choices, because when we do have equipment that is provided, we want them to know how to use it or to be able to use it in a way that's going to support that SEL that they're being trained on and taught on, during the course of the day, because SEL does occur, significantly during recess time. And that's the huge portion of them trying to manage themselves and, the emotional involvement that occurs during recess. So that's kind of how I see it. Not so much as that, you're deciding what they'll be able to do, but we're going to provide some support and you being able to learn how to do some different things.
Thank you so much. Anyone else? All right, I think, Miss Hall, would you do me a favor and just hold off just a minute? I'm going to go to the boards. I just want to just make sure I'm covering everyone from the parents and the principals, and then I'll get the board to respond. So hold off. Thank you so much. I see Miss Claire or Miss Moorhead hand up. So you have the floor. You got to take yourself off mute.
Why isn't it working? Is it working now?
Hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you. I don't have an answer for this. I'm going to be, I'm excited to be at this table. I'm going to stay at this table as long as this table needs to stay together. I put the June 1st meeting in my calendar. Like, I'm ready. I'm here. I've got a 9-year-old and a 3-year-old, so I've got some time left on this William Penn School District clock. And I'm concerned to hear that Dr. B. Coates doesn't think policies at the district level should be prescriptive. I think it's the purpose of policies. And I expect that there are policies. I have not read them all. Full disclosure, I have not read all of the school district's policies, but aren't there policies that are prescriptive of what teachers do in their classroom? Isn't that what policies do? That really is not sitting right with me. And I felt consistently dismissed by Dr. B. Coates throughout this and several other processes. And the idea that we just shouldn't have any clear guidelines because it stifles the teacher's creativity strikes me as absurd. And I needed to say that, and I needed you all to hear it. And now I have. So if anyone would like to respond, I'd welcome that, but I don't really need a response. I think it's going to be in the transcript that I said it. Thank you.
Ms. Hughes, I will respond. I would be more than happy for you to come to my office, and I would be delighted to share with you different policies that are written. Typically, most policies have a statement or clause that say the superintendent or his designee has a responsibility to come up with administrative procedures to support the policy. But I would be more than happy to share that with you. And I'm glad that you're going to continue to be at the table so that hopefully we can come up with a resolution or something that's amenable to all parties involved.
Hello, everyone.
Joy, you're muted. I see I'm on mute. This will be the last. I'm sorry, Ms. Faber. Hold on just 1 second for me, please. I'm in lieu of time, I just want to make sure that everyone's being heard. So this will be the last comment that will come from our attendees, and then we'll have a response from our principals, and then I'm going to open up the floor to our board members. Ms. Faber, go ahead.
Yeah, so this will be really quick. I just forgot to say it before.
Okay.
So it was mentioned that there are 30 minutes of recess given during the PSS8 testing. It sounds like maybe that's an across the district policy. So these things can be done. If you don't know me and my views on the testing, I don't understand why we are holding the testing above the rest of the school year. So the testing is so important that we offer the children 30 minutes so that they can focus and complete their work. And we don't care what happens, maybe not care, that's very strong, but we don't give them the opportunity to do that throughout the rest of the school year. again, we're going, and I've heard a lot of different times of recess from one school to the next. So again, all we're asking is that that becomes somewhat uniform. We're not telling teachers what to do by any means. We just want something, so it's not this school is doing one thing and this school is doing another. But again, I just want like some kind of clarity on why we have 30 minutes during PSSAs. And of course, the kids are not used to that. And so then stuff happens because they don't get it the rest of the school year. Thanks for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Did anybody, oh, okay, Mr. Williams, I see you first.
So thank you. So I wanted just to respond to the parent that preceded the one that just spoke. I do appreciate the fact that Dr. B. Coates is in favor of us having flexibility because we're all unique schools. You heard Ms. Smith speak to the population that she serves and how she's able to provide, something different for her autistic students. Ms. Birch has a population that is significantly greater than ours in terms of the numbers. So that impacts her capacity to schedule in the same way that we will. And, I will say that, again, I'm all on board with increasing recess and physical activity and all those things. But I do think that it's important to remember that, we function with, the resources that we have in the structure of our schools, and being able to provide some flexibility with that is really, really important.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Birch, I see your hand up.
Yes, I just want to invite, am I being heard?
Yes.
Okay, Marie Louise to chat with me so I can share with you how we were able to do that and why we were able to do it, and not because it was more important. I am not protesting at all, and you know that I've shared that with you. The students had a certain amount of time to test. We were able to pull it off because of some creative staffing. That is not something we can sustain every day with the number of IAs that we have. I can break down into the minutia with you with the staffing, and I don't mind doing so. We can do that at the next home and school meeting. We can talk about some volunteer opportunities, but surely being able to properly supervise and do all the things that we need to do, we were able to be creative because of the altered schedule that we had in place and staffing that we used creatively that we can't do it on a daily basis. So it really, I didn't want that to be shifted as, oh, the test is so important, we need to give you additional time to relax. That's not necessarily where we were coming from with that. So I would love to have a chat with you offline. You know where I am. Please reach out so we can continue the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. B. Coates?
Yes, Ms. Hopkins, I just wanted to make sure it was clear. I'm going to encourage board members and principals. All of my comments tonight were directly coming from my review of the policy recommendations, which was the first link on the page that Ms. Seward provided. And I don't know if other people have had the opportunity to read it, but the reason I made those comments was because in that recommended policy, there are directives for teachers and there are directives for staff members. So that's where my comments were coming from. And I wanted to make sure that the board was aware of what was in the recommended policy as we continue to have these discussions.
Thank you, sir. Now I'm going to move now to the board members, and Ms. Jennifer had her hand up first. So I'm going to go with Ms. Jennifer, and then from Ms. Jennifer, I'm going to see Ms. Irie. And after Ms. Irie, I don't think I see anybody else. So let's start off with Ms. Hall.
Thank you, Ms. Hopkins. First, I want to say I'm eternally grateful for the conversation. Principals, you're awesome. Thanks so much for being here. Parents, you're awesome. Thanks for being here. And it won't be a surprise to anyone who worked with Kaboom to build 4 playgrounds in our district that this is about, for me, a 20-minute block of free play. And I think we're really close in some schools. Like I heard 15 minutes, I sort of heard 10 minutes as the exception. So maybe we could outline, and I love brain breaks, like I love all that stuff, and I fully acknowledge that time. But the studies have shown that 20 minutes is sort of this magic number of free play. That is, young person, go do whatever you want on that field, on that cement, whatever we have for them. Now, we may well need to work with our young people to, you know, teach appropriate behavior and do all those things that the COVID years sort of wiped away less gracefully. But I think we're close on a 20-minute free play block where a teacher isn't instructing you what brain break to do. And it's not sedentary, like playing a game or something like that. I think, and that is not to say that any of, you know, anyone's not doing, you know, awesome, because that's not my intention. I think we're just looking for a 20-minute block of free play. And I think we're close. So I'm really hopeful. I don't know what it looks like, but I'm really hopeful that we could work this out and make it a valuable part of our young people's William Penn experience. Thank you, Ms. Hopkins.
Thank you, Ms. Hoff. Ms. Ivory?
Thank you, Ms. Hoff. I struggle with this, being a health and phys ed teacher of 20 years. I think the larger problem, as Dr. B. Coates and a lot of the other administrators have spoken, is based on the requirements for certain academic, ELA, math, and science. The challenge is that there's no time. And I think for parents, I'm glad that you're speaking up about this, but I would also encourage you to also reach out to the state, because the state dictates what we're required to do. And unfortunately, health and phys ed of our students, although they speak wellness, it does not reflect it in how they schedule the mandates of certain content areas. So I'm very glad that we're having this discussion. One thing I would also like to inquire is, are we including the health and phys ed teachers in this process? And I appreciate that the principals are coming up with many ideas of how to get kids moving, but possibly, you know, bringing the phys ed teachers, allowing them to kind of use their craft to support that. And also with the larger schools, maybe I don't know if we can possibly look into some other resources, because it sounds like a lot of the schools are doing what they can with what we have. And that is great, but possibly looking at the numbers. If we're only getting certain classes, certain times, a quarter or whatever it might be, maybe as a board, we need to look into the amount of instructors that we have, volunteers or whatever, so we can provide that additional support to those schools that may be in need. So that way we can kind of level the playing field. But I'm glad we're having this discussion because it is needed, and recess is definitely that time should be allowed for kids to explore and not be told what to do for that, you know, duration, although they could be provided the materials, but that's the time for them to fail. They should fail in terms of maybe they may have a conflict or something, but we're an educational institution. They should be learning how to resolve those, you know, in their phys ed classes, and then, you know, have that hiccup during the recess time, but teaching them how they can correct it. So I would hope that we can continue the conversation and include other stakeholders like phys ed teachers, the communities, and maybe come up with a plan of how we can share the information across the board so all the principals could feel supported and maybe be provided some additional support when they have larger numbers of students in their building.
Thank you, Ms. Ivory. Ms. Kulkarni?
Good evening, everyone. Once again, I'll just reiterate what has been said by my fellow board members, that this is very necessary and I'm exciting, as I see it, opportunity to have this discussion. I want to thank the parents for their vigor in bringing this subject matter to this level of communication. And then I would like to thank our principals and our administration for being as creative and receptive to meet the needs that have been described, recognizing that the limitations that have been expressed. I applaud all of you for the creativity, and I see this conversation as ongoing. I see that several have extended the conversation to be private. Come to the office. Let's look at this continuously. This is not a one and done, but I appreciate all of the efforts that our principals have made to address the concerns with the acknowledged limited resources. And thank you everyone for your participation in this conversation.
Thank you, Ms. Cook Henry. Mr. Tong.
Thank you, Ms. Hopkins. I want to echo all my colleagues on the board in thanking the parents for their points of view. As critical as this is, we appreciate your points of view as we consider principals. We applaud you in the hard work that you do every day. Thank you for all the various innovative ways that you are engaging our students and staff in providing for the students in what we can afford you at this time. I do also want to thank everyone else who was able to come out and share their thoughts and ideas as we take this information back and deliberate on how we can best address this and move this forward with what we do have available to us at this time. That's what I have, and I'm going to turn the floor back over to you, Ms. Hopkins. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Tong. Even though I did say I'm not going to do it, I'm going to do it this one time because I think this is really important. And Ms. Claire is asking, is there an avenue to reach out to the state on this? I'm going to ask our legislative chair, Ms. Hoff, if she would do the honors and answer that, please.
I don't know the answer, but I'm going to get the answer and distribute it. So I'll be reaching out to our state reps and senator in the next couple of days, and I will get that answer, Ms. Claire, and we can advocate that way. That would be awesome. Because the physical education requirements in our state are incredibly weak. I see Ms. Ivory shaking her head, and it's not correct. Your child actually only needs a half a year of gym. I think in high school, is that correct, Ms. Ivory? A half a credit, a half a year? But
it's required, that's required, but it's dependent on the school district.
okay. But we'll get you that answer, Ms. Claire, and everyone else.
Well, I tried to keep this meeting to 8 o'clock. I kind of did it. We did it, y'all. We did it. And I appreciate you all. You just don't know how much I'm enjoying this conversation. Thank you guys for this wonderful engagement. Parents, thank you all for coming out. And then also, I really, really, really want to thank so much Mr. Bangor for coming out as our student rep. I had asked student reps to be more engaging with us, so it's really good, you know, to see him here and spending that time with us. Appreciate you. Principals, I know it was a long day today. I know. And I thank you so much for spending this time and helping us to engage the parents so that, you know, we all look like that we are working together. And that really warms my heart to know that we are doing a job and we're all working together, community, families, you know, the district and the board, so, and superintendent. So thank you all. I appreciate you all. And y'all know me, most of y'all know me very well. I love you all. So have a great evening and thank you all for attending.